And how's it, folks? Welcome to Off the Dome Sports. And my name is Sean Militello. I'm your host for tonight. Um, I don't know what to say, to be honest with you. LSU comes off the disappointing loss to Florida State 24-23. I know everybody just got done watching that complete mess of a game. Uh, I'm lost of words, to be honest with you, as an LSU fan. Uh, to go through a off season hiring the most winningest coach, second winningest coach in the past decade or so, and to put on a performance like we did tonight, service justice. It really did. I think tonight's game should really humble LSU fans. It really should. As an LSU fan myself, I don't know how this can't be any more than a deja vu moment when you go right back to last year against UCLA. And I tweeted it on Twitter. I commented on some bunch of national media people who hyped up LSU all offseason long, said Florida State weren't shit, and LSU should win this game. And you know what it brought me to? PTSD against UCLA. That's what it brought me to. You go back to last year, right before we played UCLA. This is the exact thing. It's the same exact thing what happened. LSU got hyped up all week long against a team they should beat. LSU is a brand amongst the elites. And when you go out there against a team, against Florida State, who used to be a powerhouse, but obviously hasn't been the same the past few years, knowing that this is a team we should have beat. And it brings direct deja vu to last year against UCLA. I don't even blame Brian Kelly for this. I actually will give Brian Kelly this year to do what he needs to do. And next year is the year to prove it. Next year will be the year for Brian Kelly to prove what he is as a coach and why we hired him to come down here to Baton Rouge to coach one of the greatest programs in football. One of the greatest programs in football that just lost to Florida State, who's been one of the most losing programs in the past 2 or 3 years in college football. From the ACC. And we already got a comment from Nick Gotro. He says, the fact that FSU barely won just shows how bad they are. I'm not too sure if they're bad, but they're definitely not a ranked team. FSU proved to me that they're a 6 and 7 win team. LSU, in my opinion, Russ Mitchell might be right. He went on Matt Moscona, said this LSU team is a 4-win team, and he is probably 100% right based on the performance of tonight's game. Now, for those who criticize Jaden Daniels for saying he's a bad quarterback, you deserve that boy an apology. That man just went 99 yards to go try the game, and your field goal kicker couldn't even make an extra point. It got blocked. Jaden Daniels is the only reason why LSU was in this game in the first place. Jaden Daniels was the only reason why LSU had a chance to tie it up and go into overtime. I cannot stress that enough. Offensive line was absolute trash. Will Campbell hold his own, a true freshman. Hold his own, and I knew he would. 5-star talent out of Monroe, Louisiana. But your right tackle, Cam Ryer, and no disrespect, and I don't remember what year he's in, sophomore, junior, senior. I don't know what year Cam Ryer is in. But he got beat all game long when your freshman left tackle has been the rock of the offensive line all game long. Keyshawn Boutte didn't have his first reception until 5 minutes of the game. It wasn't Jaden Daniels' fault. Jaden Daniels didn't have a lick of time to pass the ball. And that's exactly why he was the starting quarterback, because he could scramble and avoid pressure. Your center, I believe Garrett Dellinger, had a bunch of bad snaps as well. I cannot voice my opinion enough. LSU's defense. Tackling was atrocious. Cannot tackle worth a lick. LSU's defensive line. I know Mason Smith got hurt, in the first or second quarter, early on, out for the rest of the game. But your defensive line has first-round talent across the board. It's the only good thing Coach O left on his team was the defensive line. And you got manhandle. Undisciplined football was played tonight by LSU. It is frustrating to watch. It's very frustrating to watch. Let's go to the comments. Nick Gotro with the comment again. Both teams are garbage. Well, it appears that LSU was more garbage. I think Florida State will actually make a bowl game this year. If everything goes their way, they're playing the ACC, Atlantic Coastal Conference. They might get lucky and win 8 games. LSU, unfortunately, plays in the Southeastern Conference. I believe LSU is the first SEC team to lose this weekend. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not too sure if that's 100% correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. LSU is the only SEC team to lose this weekend. Ryan. FSU was trying to lose. They really were. I don't know how Jaden Daniels went 99 yards if he was a bad quarterback. He's the only reason why we were in that moment. Shout out to Mason Taylor for trying to go out of balance. He tried, and he at least gave us one more play. 4-6 if we're lucky. Yes, I hope. Hell, Southern just scored 86 points last week. I mean, are we going to have troubles against Southern? I mean, I'm being a little over dramatic here. You know, I'm going to the Southern game. Just spent over $100 on 3 tickets. It's going to be a fun time because I'm just going to do exactly what I did today. Drink a lot, tailgate, and go to the game and at least enjoy one victory of the season we will have against Southern. If Southern beats LSU, I don't know if I will watch college football ever again. Exactly, Nick. Thank you. Daniels is literally the reason why LSU was even in the game. I don't know why Jaden Daniels even left Arizona State if this was the situation he was going to be in. And, you know, I blame the LSU fan base. This is 100% on the LSU fan base. In my 100% opinion, I think there's no one to blame here but the LSU fan base because I sat here and I'm just as guilty. I'm just as guilty. Don't get me wrong. I'm part of this LSU fan base. I'm a diehard LSU fan. I'm part of it, and I was part of the shit talking. But the fact that I sat here and watched LSU Twitter go on and off, go on and on about how this LSU team is going to have a resurgence under Brian Kelly and how we were going to manhandle Florida State, how we're going to win 8 to 9 games this year. How delusional we can get, guys. Seriously, how delusional can we get? It's time to get humble. We aren't Alabama. We aren't Georgia. We aren't the powerhouse we think we are. It's time to realize where this program is at. All the money you dump in, you are no better than Texas University. You are no better than Texas A&M University, who dumps all this money into the football program and they don't do jack shit. Guys, I don't know if it would have been worse if Coach O was the head coach tonight. I would think Coach O maybe would have had a better game tonight. Let's go back to some more comments here. Ryan, LSU got some serious blocking issues on the O-line and special teams. Like I said, offensive line was atrocious tonight. Daniels was running for his life. I don't see how people was tweeting out that Miles Brennan should have stayed at LSU and he should have been in the game. That man would have been absolutely killed all game long because that man has zero athletic ability. He would have had zero time to get to the ball to his wide receivers. And another thing here, we go back to 2019. Historical offense, Joe Burrow, all the offensive weapons we had that year, right? Such an explosive offense. Such an explosive passing offense. Where's the running game? LSU has lost its roots, guys. LSU lost its roots. Where did LSU come from? Yes, we have a long line of tradition at wide receiver. Never had a long line of tradition at quarterback. maybe a long line of mid quarterbacks to terrible quarterbacks. But what did you have at LSU that always was good? Running backs that can ground and pound, that can take over the game and take time off the clock for your defense to rest. Defense is absolutely gassed, guys. Offense was off in the field majority of the game. Couldn't do shit to the last 5 minutes. 5 to 8 minutes. Where's the running game? You know, I know John Emery is suspended. I understand that. I completely understand that. But there's no power run whatsoever in the heart of LSU. A school that is known for their running backs as well. A school known for their running game that some of these first-round talented wide receivers never got the chance to pad up their receiving stats because we always ran the ball with talented running backs. Where's that at? When you are a bad team like you are, why would you want to continue to pass the ball, especially when your offense cannot pass attack, cannot hold the opposing defensive line more than 2 seconds? I haven't looked at the stats. I really haven't. I have not looked at the stats. I have not looked at the game log. I have not looked at anything. And I guarantee you, Jaden Daniels probably is the leader in rushing yards. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comment the stats below so you can inform me the stats. But Jaden Daniels was absolutely running for his life. Let's get back to the comments. Team wasn't ready. I mean, it was kind of obvious. Team wasn't ready at all. And I don't want to blame Brian Kelly here. There's no excuses, though. But, you know, we did it to ourselves. We overhyped this team, thinking this team was actually going to compete. Thinking that, the last 2 coaches was Coach O and Les Miles. Those 2 won 2 national championships. Oh, yeah, Brian Kelly, automatic wins. Wrong. We are entering a new era of LSU football. And it's time to realize that. Dude, what about Malik Mabers? 2 drop pumps. That's just acceptable. Like, extremely acceptable. Very unacceptable. That just tells you how undisciplined and what Fernando just said in the comments, how unready they were for this game. You know, I just talked with Terrence Tolliver the other day. And, you know, one of the things I said it could be an advantage for Florida State is they played a game. They had a game under their belt. Sure, they played a Division II school that weren't shit, but they had a game to work out their nicks, and it was basically a preseason game for them. Brian Kelly said it himself. Florida State had time to work on this shit. Had an actual game to work on this shit. And, you know, it's funny to me because I seen LSU fans talking shit about Florida State last week. How they were playing some weak-ass school from Division II from the FCS level and how they won't do shit against LSU. Look what happened. Nick says, suck that Tiger dick, bitch. Yeah, looks like we're sucking that Seminole dick. Sorry, excuse my language. Fernando, the game sounded like it was in Florida. Well, maybe it's because Florida State had the momentum in the entire game. Florida State is a loyal fan base. They are one of, if you look at their history, they're one of the elite. Their history overall, they're one of the elite college programs in the country. If you look at their history overall, not the last few years, Florida State has a loyal fan base. I'm not surprised. Ryan, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know what he was thinking. How's the honeymoon going with BK? Look, Brian Kelly. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm going to have to watch the rest of the season to see how he handles situations, how this team progresses. One thing you've seen under Coach O the last few years, things progressively got worse throughout the season. Sure, we might have had a few games here and there towards the end of the season where we looked all right. We looked competitive. Sure. But you look at the last two seasons under Coach O's, it progressively got worse. I think it's clear that LSU's going to suck this season. But what we need to look at is Brian Kelly doing the necessary precautions to develop this team for the future. We got to play out the rest of the season. I'm giving him this year. He gets this year to do whatever the hell he wants. Figure out the coaching staff. Figure out, what players he would like to have for the future. Moving on as starters. Next year, it's game time. Next year is when he's going to have to prove himself or we're going to be a competitive team or not. Linda says, sleep it off. I'm going to sleep it off. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this game. I'm not going to lose any sleep over this game, Linda. Because I'm going to watch the Saints this season. And I know... Let me knock on wood real quick. Knocked on wood. But I know the Saints are not going to come out there next week. I know the Saints are not going to come out there next week looking like what LSU looked like tonight. The Saints might lose next week against the Falcons, which, by the way, the Falcons is a very underrated team, but that's not the point here. They're not going to look like what LSU looked like tonight. Kyle, $100 million and your coach doesn't do special teams? That's one thing Coach O got right, was his special teams. I don't know who's the special teams coach right now, and I don't know if he's still the special teams coach right now. McMahon was an awesome special teams coach last year. Former Saints special teams coach. That's one thing Coach O got right on the coaching staff, other than Joe Brady, but it's going to be a long year. That's all good. It's going to be a long year. Just brace yourself. Nick, Amen. Definitely not a top tier program. No, we're not. We're absolutely not. We're basically the Tennessee Volunteers of the West. Living in our glory days of our national championships, such a blown up head that we can't even see what's going on. Look, guys, LSU's a long ways from being a national championship contender. I still believe LSU can win a national championship within the next 5 years because it's been proven that with the last 3 head coaches. But it's not off to a good start. It's absolutely off to a horrific start. I can't tell which opener was the worst. The game against Mississippi State, the game against UCLA, or tonight's game. I guess we actually had a chance to win this game tonight. I mean, the other 2 games, we got absolutely fucked. Let's go to the next comment. Kyle, Texas A&M's going to run this team off the field. They have no swagger with this coach. Funny we say that, but, Texas A&M is one of them teams that I feel like is extremely overrated, but I don't even want to comment for the rest of the season. I don't even want to predict what's going to happen the rest of the season. I just want Brian Kelly to figure out what he needs to do this season so he can win the next season. Because for granted, look, he came into a really shitty situation. And I'm not trying to put excuses on the table. But you do got to give coaches some time. And I do agree with Thomas, my friend. I was talking to him during the game, and he can't understand why LSU fans are already calling for Brian Kelly's head. Well, I was like, well, Thomas, we spent all this money for this head coach, and we have such a high standard. I mean, and it comes out to this, losing to Florida State, who has been non-existent for the past, 3 or 4 years since they had Jameis Winston? I wanted Billy Napier, but Brian Kelly wasn't on the table. But let's be honest. If Billy Napier was the head coach tonight, would he have won the game? I'm not too sure about that. Florida has returning talent on that team. They did not face nearly the amount of transfers LSU had to deal with this offseason. This is a completely new team for LSU. I don't know what us LSU fans were even thinking. I don't know if Nick Saban could even come in here and be immediately successful. Unless if LSU played a cupcake week 1 and week 2, and then you start playing the tougher part of your schedule. But no, we played Florida State right out the gate. And we got our ass handed to. Derek, that defense needs to settle down too. Targeting penalties with ejection hurt us. So many things to fix. And I think that comes from the frustration they had from losing for majority of the game. LSU, the team, came in there thinking they were going to whip some Florida State ass, some Florida State Seminole ass from Tallahassee, Florida, from the Atlantic Coastal Conference. Not only the fans had an big old hairhead, it seems like the team did too. And Florida State came in there with more maturity. It was obvious they came in there with more maturity. Jaden Daniels, to me, was the only guy stepping up every single time that he needed to make a play. Jaden Daniels was the only veteran leader I seen during that game that even made an impact on all three phases of the game. I'm not even. We can't blame shit. You can't blame no officiating. I'm not even. So Brian Kelly was a win now move of Napier, but it's apparent that LSU isn't a win now move. You make a good point, Ryan. You make a good point. I think LSU's mindset is in win now mode, and why wouldn't you? I mean, you just came off a national championship in 2019. Did you see how good that team was? Did you see how good that team was? Les Miles won a national championship. Nick Saban won a national championship. When your last three head coaches win a national championship, you expect to win now. When your program has pretty much been right there with Alabama. I don't know if any of y'all saw my hype video, but they've been right there with Alabama. They've been the closest to Alabama, competition to Alabama this past 20 years than anybody else, in my opinion. So why wouldn't we have that mindset? My thing is, what is going on behind the scenes? What do we need to do? Like, it's just I mean, I don't know what to think, to be honest. I'm just so frustrated. I'm going off the dome. Off the dome, get it? But it's just amazing to me that we can be so successful like we were in 2019 and had a long line of success under Les Miles and start a program of eliteness under Nick Saban before he left, you know. My sister Brandy says Rivers. My nephew Rivers says go Tigers. Go Tigers. I agree, Rivers. Jarrett Lee. It's time for a down cycle for LSU, like 89 through 99, especially with NI deals leveling recruiting playing field. I can't tell you much about that area. I'm talking about NIL deals affecting LSU. I just know that LSU has enough money, enough resources to get any player they want. I don't think that's a problem. What I think is a problem is strictly who is over control of LSU. AD coach Scott Woodward, you know, we like to think he has done an amazing job, but, you know, I think it's time to start looking at Scott Woodward. You know, obviously he's not just dysfunctional like Joe. Joe Oliva was horrible. I do agree with that. But Joe Oliva also hired Coach O, who caught lightning in the bottle and won a national championship, hired Wood Wade, which is one of the best recruiters was one of the best recruiters in college basketball. Don't get me started on that. So I mean, you got to give him some credit there. I mean, what needs to happen for LSU to have consistent success? What needs to happen for LSU to become Alabama? Is it really because we don't have Nick Saban? We don't have a Nick Saban caliber coach? We don't have a Kirby Smart? What is the real issue here with LSU? Is it the culture? Is it the mindset we have as LSU fans and what we expect? Is it too much pressure we are putting on these players, these coaches, and an athletic department that is expected to win in every single sport? Brandy, my sister Brandy, says, any thought to Florida State getting their first game jitters out the way already? I think it helped them prepared for this game. I think it really did. Anytime you're able to play a game against any opponent, it doesn't matter who it is, instead of your own teammates, it's always an advantage you'll have over a team who hasn't played a game yet. Especially a team who is unproven and who is simply not ready like LSU was. It's different for teams like Alabama, teams of Georgia, teams like, you name it. Teams who win. But, Florida State, I would say, obviously they're the better team tonight. And they're probably going to be the better team all season. But I would say they're kind of on the same tier as us right now. I think they're a 6 or 7 win team. LSU's a 4, looking like a 4-win team. It's not far off, but playing that game obviously looked like it helped. Helped them prepare for LSU. Helped them stay ready, warm. They were able to fix what they felt like they were doing wrong and what they want to do with their schemes and whatever. We're going to go to Kyle again. Yes, he would have, because his team knows how to play special teams. I'm guessing he's talking about Billy Napier. I don't know. I don't know if Billy Napier, for how much pressure. Well, I don't know how Billy Napier would have been a good fit for LSU if LSU didn't want Billy Napier. If LSU was looking for the high and mighty, and they weren't even looking at in their own backyard, an hour down the Basin Bridge, UL Lafayette, a guy who was lobbying for the LSU job. He wanted to come to LSU and be the next head coach of the Louisiana State University, not Florida. He wanted to coach LSU over Florida, a Florida team that just beat 7th-ranked Utah. And we turned it down. Because we're full of ourselves. That's what it is. We are absolutely full of ourselves. And it's time to realize that. It's absolutely time to realize that. It's time to come back down to earth. We are not Alabama, guys. We would never be Alabama. As long as Nick Saban coaches for Alabama and he retires as an Alabama head coach, we would never get a coach like him again. We would never be Alabama. It's time to get that out your guys' head. We're not who we think we are. Let's go to some more comments. And so did Brian Kelly. Ryan, we had a top 3 transfer class. I believe we have a top 10 recruiting class for next season. Do you not realize that LSU went down to 30th in recruiting once we switched coaches? You know how many recruits and transfers we had once we fired Coach O? Brian Kelly already got us back in the top 10, top 5. Recruiting would never be a problem at LSU. Would never be. Unless we continue to lose like we do. If LSU doesn't shoot themselves in the foot a dozen times on special teams, they win. But you guys would continue to see the forest and the trees. I think we shoot our foots in all 3 phases of the game, Kyle. Not only special teams, but all 3 phases of the game. Defense is horrible. Offense is horrible. The only player worth mentioning in tonight's game was Jaden Daniels, and you had people talking about how bad he was, which he was the only reason why we're in the game. Yes, that is true. And that's why I said Brian Kelly. That's why I would give Brian Kelly this year. Because you pay this guy so much money, and with his resume, you just don't give up on him for 1 year. After 1 year. Especially if, even if we go, 2-8. 3-7, whatever. Next year will be the year to see who he really is as a coach. I'm just going through the comments. Two block kicks and 2 mouth pumps is just unacceptable. Just disappointed, as an LSU fan, and let's hope we see better days. Let's hope we see better days, and it's only so much us LSU fans can handle before we blow up. And there's nothing wrong, like this guy says I'm too pessimistic. Like, okay, who cares? Like, I'm not a professional. I'm just simple, like, just talking about what I watched. I'm just a regular fan, So I don't claim to be a professional. This is a fan show. I'm a fan. I want to talk with other fans. I don't want to be some professional jerk who thinks he knows it all. I want to be amongst fans and talk with amongst fans. I want to be a fan who talks to former players like Terrence Tolliver and get to know, what it was like to play and be a part of LSU football who, put these last 3 seasons aside, this is a program to be proud of. This is a program to be proud of as a fan if you look over the last 20 or something years. And, I grew up watching LSU winning. This is a new part of an LSU era. that I'm not used to, and people who are older than me. You got to realize I'm only 25. I turned 26 in September. I didn't experience the 90s. I didn't experience the losing days of LSU. You know, now as a Saints fan, I experienced a little bit of losing. I experienced that, so I know what it's like to lose. But, you know, when you're an LSU fan of the past 20 years and you didn't experience the losing days before Nick Saban, it's kind of hard to deal with it because we do have 3 national championships. We played for 4. We played for 4 in the past 20 years. We should have 4 national championships. And it's just so frustrating to watch, you know, to have down years. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that LSU will eventually get it right. I mean, Alabama had down years. Before they got Nick Saban, they were bad. I don't know how long they were bad for. That was a long time ago, but I knew when LSU was winning Les Miles before they got Nick Saban, Alabama wasn't that good. LSU has not been a disciplined team for a while, so it takes time around a spoiled program like we have. I love LSU, but we must have. I agree with that, Terrace. I agree. I agree. We haven't been a disciplined team for a while, and it does take time to turn around a spoiled program. We are a spoiled program. That's been my whole point of this show. You know, I watch Twitter, you know, and we go back to this Derek guy. He says he's going to go watch Blake, a guy who is an excellent guy. He knows his shit way more than I know. He knows way more people. Like I said, I'm not a professional like he is. He's a professional media guy. He's a professional, in my opinion. But let's get this straight. He was just on Twitter talking shit as well. Stay true to our Tiger pride. I agree. Christopher. Neighbors mishandling 2 punts in the game was crucial for y'all in the game as well. To me, Butte had some key drops as well, but LSU will be fine. I do believe give BK a couple years, he would do just fine. You know, I wish I could say we can give Brian Kelly a few years, but knowing this program, knowing these fans, knowing these boosters that fund LSU football, you know, he's not going to have a couple years. He's going to have this year. Sure, he's going to have this year. He's going to have all the excuses in the world to get it together this year. Next year, it's going to be the time for him to show it now. Jarrett Lee. I thought y'all's quarterback was really good. And yes, LSU fans are unrealistic. You shouldn't have beat Mississippi State last year. But with that win, you were 2 or 3 over last seasons. But LSU fans think they're way better than Mississippi State this year. And that game is a corn flip. I don't think we've beaten Mississippi State, Jarrett. Mike Leach looks like he's got something going on. Will Rogers is apparently going to be first, second, third round pick as a quarterback. He has brought the air raid to the SEC. Now, I don't think he'll ever do better than what Dan Mullen was able to do at Mississippi State. But I think Mississippi State's going to beat us. Justin says, I agree. Next year will tell to tell. And you're right. And I agree, Justin. Next year will be the time to really evaluate Brian Kelly. And I think that's fair. Because you just don't come down here as a coach like he is, a coach of his magnitude, and claim that you're ready for the spotlight I don't know if y'all, like I said, for a second time, I don't know if y'all watched my highlight video, but I put part of his press conference when he first was hired, and he's talking about, this is why he came down here, for the rich culture of LSU, the tradition of winning, and he's ready for the prime time Broadway whites. And he said that coming from Notre Dame, one of the most historic colleges, just colleges in general, Notre Dame. Yet alone football, one of the most historic football programs in the country. And he's talking about he came down here knowing that he'll have more of a chance to win a national championship than he does at Notre Dame because he knows he can get better talent. There's talent on this football team, but it might take this year to get the certain type of talent that fits to his schemes, to his likings. He did have a 4-win season at Notre Dame at one point, but he was able to turn around and make it to the national championship against Alabama. He has had fantastic players over the past decade or so at Notre Dame that went to the pros and turned out to have great, fantastic careers in the NFL. One of my great friends, Thomas, says, got to be patient, regroup, tough, humbling loss. And you know what? I think, I'm taking it out, my anger. And this is what I use this podcast for. If I'm frustrated, I'm going to voice my frustration. And when I'm happy about my sports teams, I'm going to voice that on this show. Like I said, I'm a normal fan, just like any over y'all. Like, I'm no different from any one of y'all who comment. I'm not a professional. I'm a regular fan, just like anybody else in this comment section, anybody else on Twitter. I use this show to voice my frustrations, to share my frustrations, and to share happiness when we do win. And I'm going to take this game with a grain of salt now, and I'm gonna put it behind me, and I'm just gonna see what happens as the season progresses and see what he does. Like, what's Brian Kelly gonna do to bounce back from this terrible loss to Florida State? They only lost by 1 now, and I do give props for them. They still fought to get back in this game. So I mean, let's give this guy a chance. We just can't be one game gun hold ready to fire Brian Kelly. That'll make 0 sense. Especially when we're still paying our Coach O. Let's see what Tam showed. We had it good as LSU fans. Out of the last 21 years, we have three championships. Tons of talented players in the NFL. We are good. And that's the problem when you do become successful. And LSU has been very successful. That's why we were considered a top elite. We are considered as a top elite program. And that's why coaches like Brian Kelly want to come here. That's why quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, like Jaden Daniels, who had it good Joe Burrow didn't have it good at Ohio State. He wasn't starting at Ohio State. But, guys like them want to come to LSU and do what they do. Let's see what Christopher says. Do you feel like LSU should have kept Orgeron? I hope Mason Smith isn't. Nah, it was time for Orgeron to go. I mean, the last 2 years were highly dysfunctional. You just don't keep around dysfunctional, even if, he was trying his best. If it's not working, and it progressively gets worse, you don't keep that guy any longer than you should have. Especially when you just come off a national championship in 2019, and you're not able. the hire the type of staff that you had in 2019 to continue that success, you can't stay here. I'm a diehard Gators fan, so we're in the same boat with new personnel with Napier on board. Yeah, but I do think Napier is a really, really good fit. And, honestly, I'm glad he didn't come to LSU because I don't know if he would be successful at LSU. It's just too much pressure from the fan base. And I'm not saying Florida doesn't have the same amount of pressure, but it's like I just think it was just too much of a perfect fit for him to go to Florida. Because Florida hasn't won an actual championship since Urban Meyer. So only way you can go is up with Florida right now. LSU is still riding a high from 2019. We sold our souls to the devil for 2019. You know what? It's still damn worth it. It's still worth it. I agree, Thomas. I was saying that the whole time. But look, guys, I think I'm going to call it a night. I was able to voice my opinion on here, my frustrations. I highly appreciate every single one of you who came on the show tonight and comment. I will have. I'm on a different computer right now, so I wasn't able to have. Normally, I have a hotline, a phone hotline where people can call, but I haven't had the equipment set up for this computer because this computer is not compatible with my equipment that runs all that stuff. But I will be back next week. Gonna be talking Saints. I'm going to the LSU game next Saturday against Southern. Should be a great game. I'm going with Thomas, actually. It's going to be his birthday next Saturday, so y'all wish him a happy birthday. But yeah, y'all have a good night. And, if y'all ever want to talk sports, you can reach out on any of my social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can message me on Off the Dome or my personal. I even have a phone number separate from my real number you could probably text. I love to talk sports. I'm a fan of the game. And I just love to talk sports. It doesn't matter if I know what I'm talking about or not. It's just fun to do. But yeah, I'll catch y'all next time. And thanks for tuning in. And I'll see you guys next week.